Today, we're comparing the 2023 Volkswagen Tiguan and the 2023 Honda CR-V. This is the new generation CR-V. I've reviewed this separately. You can watch that video with a link in the description below. But today, I'm going to tell you why I think the Tiguan might be the better choice out of these two. So, let's roll! The trims that we have for today's video, the Honda CR-V EXL, this is technically the highest trim for the 9 hybrid. Meanwhile, on this side, we have the Comfort line. This is not the fully loaded. Unfortunately, with the situation right now with the semiconductors, it's pretty hard to get your hands on a fully loaded vehicle. But this has the Rline package for the exterior, give it that sporty look. Now, let's talk about how these two look and what do they give in terms of the tech features on the outside. First of all, let's start with the Tiguan over here. This has the keyless entry only for the front. It's a button that you press over here. With this package, we get the beautiful blacked out wheels. So you can go all the way up to 20-inch wheels with the highest trim. Not the biggest fan of the fake exhaust tips at the bottom, but they do give it an aggressive look. This is not technically a performance vehicle, so it'll do the job just fine. With this package, in Canada, I believe even with the high trim, you don't get a power tailgate. In the US, it was offered as an option, but not with the one that we have for today's video. You can unlock it from your key, but it's not fully automatic, unlike the one in the CR-V. But look at what we have in here. This thing has huge, massive trunk space. And most importantly, if you need more seats, guess what? Just for about $900 Canadian or so, or 700 USD, you get a third row. Yes, they offer a third row. That's how much space you get in here. So you'll be able maybe to use it for your pet or your child. They can sit in the back. So now you have 7 seats. That's pretty impressive. The Honda CR-V, of course, it is redesigned for this year, so you get a bit more aggressive look. The grille is different. Even this one has that blacked out area, but it is bigger grille in my opinion. Meanwhile, the Tiguan is nicer looking with that R badge on the side, more sporty. That thing looks more like a bigger Golf. That's just the way I see it. The CR-V feels bigger, although in terms of length, they're very similar, but the actual height of the vehicle feels slightly bigger than the Tiguan. And move on to the side over here, we have the winter package with this vehicle. It has the blacked out part at the bottom. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy, just a normal looking SUV. Not too flashy at the same time. Now let's go to the back and let's talk about some of the things that you get with this. Into the back side of the CR-V, we got these flashy tail lights. They're a nice design, nice touch. Someone said to me the other day, they kind of look like BMW design, maybe. You have the all-wheel drive badge at the top. That way you know this is a full all-wheel drive. And then if we press this button over here, we get access to the trunk area. Now, this does give a bit more space in terms of depth because it's much lower on this side here. But in terms of the extension, in comparison to that, it is better in the Tiguan. It is just slightly wider, and also the length is better in the Tiguan because you can fit a third row. But you can, this is still pretty nice. Maybe you can put your luggage sort of like straight up, and that way it gives you more space. And when you get the hybrid, that space that you get underneath, that's gone because now you have the battery in there. But the good news is that you get a power tailgate, which again comes in real handy. Into the second row for the CR-V. Space-wise, nice, comfortable, a little bit of headroom. It feels like it's a little bit small in terms of the distance between the ceiling, the roof specifically, and the seats. We got heated seats in the back, no USB-C ports in here at all, so you can't charge anything in here. There's just some vents, but other than that, that's it. You can only fold one seat on this side and then two in here, where there's a light at the top. There is no panoramic roof with this package. There's just a sunroof in the front. Now let's jump into the Tiguan. Okay, now we're talking. This thing feels a lot more roomy in comparison to that. And when you get this beautiful panoramic roof, it gives a different experience when you jump in, and it looks brighter. It's nicer inside. We have a USB-C port at the bottom over there. You can fold the seats the same way, and this nice interior. Absolutely love the color. I like how this thing looks and how it feels jumping in. And someone my height, look, there's so much space in terms of headroom. I love the little touches in design. Now with this package, we don't get any heated seats, but you get the option for the higher trim to get heated seats in the front and of course at the back. And I do believe you get a small climate zone in the second row. I like the interior. I feel already jumping from that to this, it feels spacious in my books. And of course, you got the light at the top over there and beautiful brightness that comes through that panoramic roof, which of course you can close. Jumping into the Tiguan, you notice a bit of that premium feel, and the equipment and the software and the design overall, it's nicer, I think, in comparison to the CR-V. But I do have a love-hate relationship with this car. I'll tell you why. First of all, the buttons over here. First time jumping in, it will not be easy to get used to them. But of course, most people will own this thing in a long run. So that's definitely, it just takes time to get used to. Screen 8-inch, it has that haptic feedback. I like it. It is touchscreen as well. Then move on to the climate unit over here. That's another thing that initially annoyed me a little bit, but then with time you get used to it because it's not real buttons like the one you see in the CR-V. But you do get the standard manual, of course, gear knob here, which I absolutely love, and it has a sport mode. Power handbrake, the button located onto the side. There's different driving modes that you can play around with this thing, from eco, normal, you can do sport, and you can do also custom. It's a nice touch. I like the camera with this package. Unfortunately, we don't get a 360 camera with the high trim, which should be compared technically to the CR-V. You do get a 360 camera. This only has park assist in front and back. It has those sensors, but not a full 360 view. The steering wheel, it's nice and grippy with the Rline package. It looks similar to the one in the Golf R. I love the beautiful stitching, and it's grippy in the center. We have the R badge at the bottom. It's kind of like flat bottom a little bit. The screen is digital, and most importantly, you can change a lot about the screen because it is customizable. So you can change the view. You can also have a full view off the map. You have a view button over here, and there's so much that you can see through that. And it is a nice analog, but also digital major. On the left side, you have the temperature in analog. On the right side, you have the fuel level in analog as well, and then this massive screen in the center. I love how this is designed. We have USB-C ports at the bottom and a wireless charging pad. Jumping into the CR-V, well, it looks like a Honda Civic, and it is in many ways because the design is shared with the new Civic. The new Civic was the first one to arrive with that refreshed design, which this has. The infotainment, it is full 9-inch, I believe. It is slightly bigger than the one in the Tiguan, and it does have some mechanical buttons, like for example the volume, the home button, the back button, and so on, seeker, and you have all these touch buttons at the bottom. The actual steering wheel, it doesn't have any fancy steering wheel, just a standard Civic one. It's not like grippy, the same one that you get with the Rline. There's a heated steering wheel button at the bottom. The cluster over here, it is small screen on the side, analog for the speedometer. There's a wireless charging pad with this package. There is a USB-C and a USB port in comparison to the Tiguan that has 2 USB-Cs. And most importantly, you have a mechanical gear knob, which I do love in both cars. The infotainment display, this is where I think the Tiguan wins big. This is very laggy. It's not the fastest I've used out there. And connectivity is nice because you get wireless Android, Apple CarPlay as well, connecting through the wireless connectivity, so you don't have to like plug anything and have those wires around it. It's nice on both of them. But even with the highest trim, with the CR-V, you don't get a 360 camera, and you also don't get a full panoramic roof, the one that you get in the Tiguan. In terms of the interior design, I do like the Tiguan a bit more. This feels like a bigger SUV, but yet with that Civic touch. I like how the Tiguan is inside overall. The layout is nice. In fact, the camera guy behind, Pratt, jumped into that one too, and he does agree with me, right? Yeah. The Tiguan is nicer? The next thing I want to talk to you about is how do they compare in terms of driving experience? And that's what's important at the end of the day, because as a driver, you want to know a little bit more about how these handle on the road. And that's what we're going to do next. We're going to take them for a test drive. We're going to talk about the specs and how do they drive on normal roads. So let's go for a drive. The CR-V uses a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. It makes 190 brake horsepower and 179 pound-feet of torque. That is, of course, for the one that we have for today's video. It is paired to a CVT. Yeah, they're just fake gears, basically. They're not real gears, just simulated to make you think that are gears. Meanwhile, the CR-V Sport and Touring in the US, they get a hybrid. In Canada, there's only one trim for the CR-V, and that's for the hybrid. And the hybrid has a different engine in comparison to this, which uses a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. And of course, it is equipped with 2 hybrid motors. That one makes 204 brake horsepower and 247 pound-feet of torque. So technically, in the Honda, you get 2 engine options, but that, of course, will cost you a lot more money than the trim. In fact, in Canada, you're looking at about $3,000 more for the hybrid. The Tiguan uses a 2-liter inline 4 cylinders, turbocharged, and it makes 184 brake horsepower, 6 brake horsepower less than the CR-V. This uses an 8-speed automatic transmission, so it's not a CVT. And most importantly, you have sport mode and a sport transmission. So you can put the car in sport mode and the transmission in sport mode. It is, of course, a 4-motion all-wheel drive. Now, in Canada, you can get a front-wheel drive. You can only get front-wheel drive in the US. Canada, they all come with 4-motion. Meanwhile, the CR-V offers a front-wheel drive and an all-wheel drive. The other important thing to note is the fact that the CR-V doesn't tow the base model. The hybrid does tow. With a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, can tow up to 1,500 pounds, which is quite impressive. Another thing I noticed with this is that when you put your foot down, you don't hear the engine as much. You hear it, but not at the same level as the CR-V. Here's what I think about the CR-V in comparison to the Tiguan. The road noise is very noticeable in here. Visibility is great overall. Space-wise, they're almost the same in terms of the driver's side. Not necessarily overall. The power output in here, it's okay. The 1.5 liter does well. You can't tow anything with this. Only the hybrid can. The steering is soft. You move left and right, you steer. Pretty nice. I like the fact that there's a gear knob. There's a sport mode with a transmission. Otherwise, you can't get it in sport mode with switching modes. The engine does okay. Comfort level, suspension, it's okay. It's not bad, this one. The driver assistant package in the CR-V, it's pretty standard, so basically it will keep you within the lanes. If it's steered too far to the right or to the left, it kind of like moves the car for you into the center, so it's actively steering, for better terms. And it has gap assist as well. You have blind spot assist with this package, very handy to have. Now let's talk about the pricing. What are you going to pay in Canada and the US for each vehicle? The Tiguan front wheel drive in the US starts at $31,800. While the all-wheel drive starts at $33,000 US. The CR-V starts at $31,600, and that's for the front wheel drive. So they're actually not too far from each other. It's just a $200 difference for the Tiguan. Now, if you're going to go all the way to the hybrid, you're going to pay over $50,000 for the CR-V. That's actually a big gap, and take in consideration that this actually offers more tech features. And as I said previously, I do think it drives slightly better. It just makes sense to go for this. And getting that third row, that's a huge help for a lot of people. And if you didn't know, yes, you can. You can add that. I like how this thing drives. I expected initially to enjoy the CR-V more, but I enjoy this more. It's very low to the ground. You're not sitting too high. Visibility is great as well. It generally feels like a sedan, not an SUV, until you look back and you realize this thing is pretty big. I would go for the Tiguan. I really like this thing. I like how it drives. It's very well isolated and you don't hear the road noise as much. I like that.